Here we are at the Spring Grove Cemetery in the Florence neighborhood of Northampton, Massachusetts. We're in front of the grave for Julius Maine. He was born in 1839 and died in 1922. He's buried with many of his relatives here, including his wife and his daughter, but his friend is on the back. And we're going to go to the back after him. And then we're going to do a couple of spins around the cemetery, tell you about the cemetery. This is a cemetery finished in 1873, and it's really got going by that year with a lot of burials inside here. All right, now, Julius Maine, why is he important to the cemetery? Because he's the one that donated the money to make a lot of this cemetery. He donated money for the fountain, which is the centerpiece of the cemetery. He donated the money for the sidewalks, not only within the cemetery, but coming from Florence from two different directions. He paid for the sidewalks. He also paid money to have curbing put in to make it look better. For instance, some around the fountain area and some around the other old area. All right, so he paid for all that with his money as donation because he wanted this area to look nice. He even named his daughter Florence. I don't know if that's anything to do with the Florence itself. But anyways, Julius Maine is the main person within the cemetery for the structure of the cemetery. Now, who's the surprise person in the back? Okay, let's go see it. All right. So, on the back, now if you're a genealogist, or if you love cemeteries in Western Massachusetts, then the name Walter Corbin, who died in 1960, and his wife Lottie, are very important because in the 1930s, Walter and Lottie did a survey of every small to medium-sized cemetery in the Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts for many, many, many thousands of gravestones. For many cemeteries, I would bet up to about 60 to 70 cemeteries at least. In 1935, he did an inventory for all of them. It was a WPA project, Work Progress Administration. He also went around to town halls and got into the birth, death, and marriage records and wrote up a card for each one of those. And so they became very available to genealogists. So for genealogists, he is a priceless person with his wife. And it was all under our WPA project, which is wonderful. And I think what happened was he must have been friends with the Maine family somehow, and he's buried on the back of that. Now, if you don't know him, you should know him, because if you like cemeteries, he is a great catalyst to get genealogy and cemetery information going. And you can actually find information that doesn't exist anymore. For instance, you can find a cemetery out in Pelham, look through all his cards, find out all the inscriptions of every tombstone in that cemetery in Pelham, and you might find one that doesn't exist. I did just yesterday, getting ready for this. I looked through a certain cemetery in Pelham called the West Cemetery, and on the third card, I already found a card where the stone existed in 1935, but it doesn't exist anymore. And that is extremely useful. And then just to prove that it wasn't a fluke, I did the same thing in Holyoke for a cemetery there called Smith Ferry Cemetery. The first card I looked at was for a person whose inscription on the gravestone exists in 1935, but does not exist anymore. So over and over again you find these, and he's quite valuable. So we're going to sweep around the cemetery twice, just to get a sense of how it's laid out. And we'll use this Maine Corbin stone. All right, so what we're going to look at is the old part from the 1870s is here for more of the poorer people who couldn't buy enormous plots. And then there's a brook down there. And then you start to get into the more of the 50s, 60s gravestone. But right beyond us is the fountain. Now that fountain, when it turns on, it's going to look gorgeous. Turns on from Mother's Day into the start of October. They'll look exceptionally gorgeous. Now, what we can't see from this part is the other wall part, and you're going to have to just go there on your own. It has a lot of important people, including the family that donated the land for free for this cemetery. Sure, there's this main family that did a lot, but the other wall part itself has the Warner family, and they have a big round sphere for their gravestone. All right, now the gates themselves, both sets of gates, there's two columns here and there's two columns in the very front of the cemetery. Those were also donated for free by Luther Martin, and he donated all the money for those beautiful gates. And then as we look around some more, we got some really beautiful stones here. Some very old stones towards the back, probably for paupers. And then my favorite, actually, I maybe chuckled the other day. You can see a stone over there that says stone on it. The Stone family had a good sense of humor. They bought a big gravestone as a stone for their Stone family. All right? So we're going to be quiet now. We'll sweep around once more. Okay, so thank you for coming to the cemetery.